Hello, everybody. It's me and your favorite cat. It's Smokely the cat. We're going to read about some Judaism today. Whee! She's so excited. Well, let's get ready, little Smokely. Let's read to these kids. This is similar to your article from yesterday. It is an article about Judaism's origins and its spread to the United States. There's a pre-reading question about maps that by now I hopefully have given you the code. No sneaking the code, no cheating on the code. Yeah, let's get right into it. The story that you're about to hear is a complete origin story of the Jewish faith, how it started. It's going to sound eerily similar maybe to something that you've heard before in terms of the cultural characteristics, a lot of familiar names, potentially. So let's get right into it. The ancient Israelites, the land of milk and honey. The Hebrews were different because they only worshiped one God named Yahweh. There have been many empires that have come and gone. In the ancient world, the Babylonians, Persians, and Assyrians all had great wealth and power. They also built fantastic capital cities. But each of these cities, with their great palaces, ended up being destroyed. However, there was a nation near these great powers that lasted far longer, even though it had far less power. They were the Hebrews. They were also called Israelites or Jews. The Hebrews were very different from other nations. The main thing that set them apart was that they only had one God. This is called monotheism. The God that the Hebrews worshiped was called Yahweh. The Hebrews believed that Yahweh had total power and knew everything. He was so great that humans could never fully understand him. The religions of Christianity and Islam were both influenced by Jewish beliefs about Yahweh. Abraham and the Torah. So this is a little bit about that fellow Abraham. We learned a little bit about yesterday. Abraham was the father of the Hebrews. He was told by Yahweh to lead his people to the promised land. What we know about the early Hebrews comes from the 5 books that make up the Torah. The Torah tells us that Abraham is the first father of the Hebrew people. Abraham was born in a city in Sumeria called Ur. After Abraham's father died, Yahweh told him to destroy the statues of the gods that his father worshipped. From now on, he was only to worship Yahweh. Abraham was also told to move to a place called Canaan. Yahweh made a special promise to Abraham. If he followed Yahweh's instructions, he would be the father of a great nation of people. Those people would live in a paradise that was flowing with milk and honey. This was the land of Canaan. Today, the area is called Israel. Abraham moved to Canaan sometime between 2000 BCE and 1700 BCE. At that time, Canaan already had people living in it. They were called the Canaanites. These people lived in small cities with big walls around them. They did not mind when the Hebrews moved on to some of their land. The land that Abraham and his followers settled on was not yet a paradise. It was very hot and dry, and the people found it hard to survive. Stories of the Torah tell how they moved from the harsh lands of Canaan to Egypt. And this is a dominant theme when it comes to the Jewish faith, this constant movement. The Israelites moved to Egypt. According to the Torah, Yahweh allowed Hebrew men in Abraham's time to have more than one wife. Abraham had 2 wives and 2 sons. His first wife, Sarah, had Isaac. Abraham's second wife, Hagar, had Ishmael. And Ishmael is actually the fellow that a lot of Muslims believe their line splits with Abraham's sons. Moving on, Abraham's second wife, Hagar, had Ishmael. Jewish people believe that the Hebrews descended from Isaac, there's our other son, and his son Jacob, who had 12 sons. Jacob's 12 sons became the leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel. According to Jewish tradition, the son who Jacob loved the most was the second to youngest. His name was Joseph. Joseph's brothers were jealous of him. They were so jealous they sold him as a slave, and he was taken from Canaan to Egypt. Even though he was sold as a slave, Joseph rose to become the third most important person in Egypt. Back home in Canaan, the land was hit with a terrible drought. Joseph's brothers went to Egypt to beg for grain. They were surprised to see their younger brother, who they had sold into slavery, now in charge of giving out food. Joseph forgave his brothers and told them to stay with him in Egypt. Jacob's 12 sons, including Joseph, grew into a great nation in Egypt. In fact, they became so strong that the Egyptian ruler worried that they would overtake the Egyptians. This ruler, called a pharaoh, made all the Hebrews into slaves. Historians are not sure, but some believe that it was Ramses II who forced the Hebrews into slavery. He ruled or reigned from 1279 BCE to 1213. Let's go ahead and type BCE in there for you. There we go. Perfect. The Exodus to Canaan. Moses led the Hebrews from Egypt toward the Promised Land. After hundreds of years, the Hebrews were defeated by the Assyrians and then the Babylonians. The Torah tells the story of Moses, who led the Hebrews out of slavery in Egypt. This was called the Exodus. At that time, a man named Mernepath was Pharaoh of Egypt. The Hebrew people believed that Yahweh performed a number of miracles to force the Egyptian Pharaoh to let them go. Moses then led the people out of Egypt. And here's an artistic interpretation. It's not from the actual time, it's from 1907. According to the Torah, Hebrews wandered around in the desert between Egypt and Canaan for 40 years. They were still looking for their land of milk and honey. During this time, Yahweh gave Moses the 10 Commandments. This was a list of laws for the Hebrew people. The Hebrew people began to complain and worship other gods while in the desert. God wanted to punish them, but Moses begged for forgiveness. Moses died before the Hebrews entered Canaan. He is regarded as a great leader in the Jewish tradition even today. The new leader of the Hebrews after Moses died was Joshua. He led the people into Canaan. Joshua was a great warrior, and he led the Hebrews to victory over the people who were already in Canaan. These were the Canaanites and the Philistines. The Hebrews claimed the land and settled in Canaan. They became farmers and herders without a homeland. The Jewish people could not stay in Canaan for long. Attacks and persecutions have resulted in a long period of Jewish struggle known as the Jewish diaspora. And another artistic interpretation there. Lots of dark colors. In 722 BCE, the northern half of the Hebrew land was attacked and destroyed by fierce people called the Assyrians. The southern half of the land was called Judea. Judea stayed safe for a few hundred more years, but in 597 BCE, it was attacked by Babylon. Most of the Hebrews were taken as prisoners back to Babylon. While they were prisoners, Hebrew writers wrote down the history of their people. Then, around 539 BCE, Babylon was conquered by the Persians. Their ruler, Cyrus II, known as Cyrus the Great, allowed the Hebrews to go back to their holy city of Jerusalem. Around 70 CE, the Hebrews were conquered once again. This time it was the Romans who defeated them. They destroyed the great temple in Jerusalem and forced the Hebrews to move into other parts of the world. The Jewish people had a homeland in Canaan, or modern-day Israel. The many attacks from the Assyrians, Babylonians, and Romans forced them to leave. This started what is known as the Jewish diaspora. The word diaspora is used when a group of people are forced to leave their home and settle in different places around the world. Diasporas are usually very destructive and tragic for a group of people who can lose their culture, language, religion, and community. The Jewish people face persecution and violence throughout history, including in the present day. So that's the origin story to the Jewish faith. A few characteristics in there. You heard the major people, major book. And now let's hear about a holiday. Specifically, this is an article about how this Jewish holiday called Hanukkah moved to America and diffused over here, and it became a rather big deal. So this is from Diane Ashton. She is a professor of religion from Rowan University. How Hanukkah came to America. Hanukkah may be the best known Jewish holiday in the United States, but Hanukkah is actually one of Judaism's minor festivals and doesn't get as much attention in other parts of the world. The holiday is mostly a domestic or household celebration, although special holiday prayers also expand synagogue worship. So how did Hanukkah get its special place in America? Hanukkah's backstory. The word Hanukkah means dedication. It is a time to remember the rededication of the ancient Second Temple in Jerusalem in 165 BCE. This happened when a Jewish group led by a band of brothers known or called the Maccabees tossed out non-Jewish statues from their temple. The statues were put there by King Antiochus IV when he conquered Judea. Antiochus wanted to convert everyone in his kingdom to his culture, and that included worshiping its gods. The Maccabees were restoring Judaism and rebelling against the way they were forced to worship different gods. Legend has it that during the dedication, people prepared to light the temple's large oil lamps to signify the presence of God, but only a tiny bit of holy oil could be found. Yet that tiny bit of oil remained lit for 8 days until more could be prepared. As a remembrance of that event, people celebrating Hanukkah now light a candle each evening for 8 nights. A candle is added each night as the 8-day holiday progresses. Hanukkah's American story. In the late 19th century, it could be difficult for the Jewish faith to practice their religion. As in many parts of the world, they were often discriminated against by members of other religions. Because the Jewish population in the United States was very small, the basic goods required for Jewish religious life could be difficult to find. Stores did not often carry the candles, foods, calendars, and religious texts that would be needed to celebrate holidays or practice the religion. In those early days, major Jewish religious events took special planning and effort. Minor festivals like Hanukkah often slipped by unnoticed. My own study of American Jewish history has recently focused on how Hanukkah came to be the most well-known Jewish holiday in the United States. It began with a simple holiday hymn written in 1840 by Penina Moise, a Jewish Sunday school teacher in Charleston, South Carolina. Her evangelical Christian neighbors worked hard to bring local Jewish people into the Christian faith, urging them to agree that only by becoming Christian could they attain God's love and ultimately reach heaven. Moise was a famous poet. She saw the Hanukkah holiday, celebrating dedication to Judaism, as a way to inspire Jewish people to stay committed to their faith, even when faced with pressure from other religious groups. Her congregation, Beth Elohim, publicized the hymn by including it in their hymn book or songbook. The English language hymn expressed a feeling common to many Jewish people living as a tiny minority in America. Most religious texts of Judaism are written in Hebrew. Having a religious song in English was special for them because they could practice their faith while also speaking the common language of the country. Great arbiter of human fate, whose glory ne'er decays, Moise began the hymn. To thee alone we dedicate the song and soul of praise. The hymn became a favorite among the American Jewish population. It could be heard in congregations around the country for another century. Shortly after the Civil War, Cincinnati rabbi Max Lilienthal learned about special Christmas events for children held in some local Christian churches. He decided to adapt them for the children in his Jewish congregation. He created a Hanukkah assembly where the holiday story was told, blessings and hymns were sung, candles were lit, and sweets were distributed to the children. His friend, Rabbi Isaac M. Wise, created a similar event for his own congregation. Wise and Lilienthal edited national Jewish magazines where they publicized these new Hanukkah assemblies. They also encouraged other congregations to establish their own. Lilienthal and Wise also aimed to reform Judaism. They felt their changes would help Judaism survive the modern age and called themselves modern Maccabees. Through their efforts, special Hanukkah events for children became standard in American synagogues. 20th century expansion. And we have here a religious service from the 1940s. It's a good time. 20th century expansion. In 1900, industrial America was producing an abundance of goods exchanged each December 25th. Christianity was practiced by the majority of Americans. The Christmas traditions and celebrations in the United States gave children of all Christian denominations a shared religious experience. During other times of the year, they were divided by what church they attended, but Christmas and gifts under the tree erased those lines. Christmas blurred the division between different Christian churches by bringing families and communities together in a fun home celebration. Over 2 million Jewish immigrants entered the United States between 1881 and 1924. For them, providing their children with gifts in December proved they were becoming American and obtaining a better life. By giving those gifts at Hanukkah instead of adopting Christmas, they expressed their own ideals of American religious freedom. This also showed their dedication to Judaism by not celebrating a Christian holiday. After World War II, many Jewish people relocated from city centers. Outside of the city, Jewish children often made up a small minority in public schools. They often found themselves forced to participate in Christmas assemblies. Teachers, administrators, and peers often pressured them to sing Christian hymns and proclaim statements of Christian faith. From the 1950s through the 1980s, suburban Jewish leaders responded to the cultural pressure of Christmas and expanded their Hanukkah celebrations. This expansion happened at the same time that Jewish parents argued for their children's right to freedom from religious coercion. Although schools were not legally allowed to make Jewish children participate in Christian religious activities, Jewish parents felt that social pressure was used to encourage their children's participation. As a result of this social pressure, Jewish parents tried to develop more festive holiday or Hanukkah traditions. As I detail in my book, Jewish families embellished Hanukkah celebrations with decorations, nightly gifts, and holiday parties to grow Hanukkah's impact. In the suburbs, Hanukkah's theme of dedication to Judaism shone with special meaning. Rabbinical associations, national Jewish clubs, and advertisers of Hanukkah goods spread the ideas for expanded Hanukkah festivities across the nation. In the 21st century, Hanukkah now accomplishes many goals. In the middle of the Christmas season, it reminds Jewish people of Jewish dedication. Its home celebrations encourage Jewish family life. Just like the Christian tradition of giving gifts at Christmas, Hanukkah makes Judaism attractive to children. It also, according to my college students, makes Jewish people more fun or more relatable, more fun. It makes Jewish people more relatable to their Christian neighbors. In families that include people of different faiths, this shared festivity helps create more peace and understanding. In America, this minor festival has turned into a major holiday event. And I like that article because at my personal family Christmas, anytime my brother-in-law and my sister come down from Milwaukee, they do celebrate Hanukkah with us. So it is nice to see that this article does kind of connect, somewhat typical American holiday traditions every December. And that little story there was how Hanukkah became a thing, specifically in the United States. So that'll wrap that up. my cat left, so no saying goodbye to old Smokely. I'm sure you'll see her again. Have fun, good luck, and remember, the quiz is about slowing down, making sure you get this stuff in. If you want to move your score around, you can. Have a good one.